Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial video using Autodesk Advanced Steel 2019. Today I'm going to look at the use of a tool on the Tools tool palette called Transform Elements. When I click it, this will launch a dialog box which will allow me to use 8 separate modify tools to move, copy, rotate, mirror, align and adapt the Advanced Steel components. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is the copy tool. This allows me to create a series of copies of the Advanced Steel objects. Up on the top right of the screen I've got a Select Objects tool, and that allows me to go back to the model and select individual objects that I wish to copy. In this case I'm going to select my 2 columns, my 2 rafters, and I'm also going to select the outer joint box for my portal frame. Once I'm happy with the selection, I right click on my mouse and this takes me back to the Transform Elements dialog box. And one thing to note, up the top left we have the Include Additional Connectors button. And what this means is that anything that has a connection attached to a part that I've chosen, it will include them subsequent parts. And you can see when it's ticked on, it has 130 objects selected. When it is ticked off, it's back to the original 5. So if I want to include my connections, I ensure that Include Additional Connectors is on. So when I'm in my copy tool, I can now specify each of the individual values that I can now copy. So I can go in the X direction 5 meters and a number of copies 3. You have a preview mode, and if you click preview, it will preview what the selection set is going to do. You'll see there I have the 3 number copies with a 5 meter spacing in the X direction, and if I'm happy with it, I can click OK on the preview button, and that will simply create a copy of the portal frame in that direction. I am going to undo this just for the series of clarity within the video and go back to my Transform Elements. If we look at the Move tool, you will see once you click it, it resets the dialog box. So I'm now going to select my 5 items again, and I'm going to include my additional connectors. Now the move value works, you simply just enter a distance, so I go in my Y direction, or let's do it on the X, and let's just move this portal frame 5 meters in the X direction, and I simply click OK, and that will move the complete portal frame. If I undo that again, let's look at the Array tool. So what the Array tool, similar to the AutoCAD command, it will allow you to array the series of objects in a series of directions. So here again I can select my column, rafter, rafter, column, joint box, again include my additional connectors, and in the X direction I'm going to say that it's going to be a 5 meter spacing, 3 number, but also in my Y direction I'm going to go 15 meters, 3 number. I then simply select OK, and that will create an array of the objects both in the X and Y direction. So you can see that I've both arrayed both in the X and Y. If I undo that again, I could also array in the Z direction. So if I said 15 meters and then 3 number high, again select my objects. So both columns, both rafters, joint box, include additional connectors. So 5 meters X, 15 meters Y, 15 meters Z, select OK. And the more that we're doing with this tool, the longer it takes to compute. You can see that it's running it on the bottom of the screen. And you'll see there we have our 27 portal frames. So I'm just going to undo that again. And let's go back and look at the next option. So the polar array tool allows you to array the objects, but obviously using the polar tool. So when we select it, you will see that it opens up the bottom right of the dialog box. So you can choose a center point, so you can actually specify the X and Y, or you can start to use these little pick boxes which allow you to pick a point in the model. Now I'm going to pick a center point on my grid line C, and that will specify the two X and Y distances. I can then choose different ways to fill that polar angle, so I can fill the number of items by the angle between, the total number and the angle to fill, or the angle to fill and the angle between the items. But I'm just going to leave it on total number of items. I'm going to say there's 6 items. The angle between each one, let's say, is 45 degrees. And we can increment them in a Z distance, but again I'm going to leave that at 0. And what the rotate items tool means is that if that is ticked on, the actual columns will rotate in line with the polar angle. If it's ticked off, the columns will not rotate. So I'm going to click OK to that, select my object, and again I'm just going to select the 4 column rafter. I'm not going to select the joint box. I'm going to select OK. So if that's my selected objects, include additional connections is on. If we look at the preview tool, it will now rotate these objects around that center point that I've chosen. And then if I'm happy with it, I can simply click OK. You will see when the rotate object tool is on, the objects and columns rotate around that angle. But if I modify it and I say the rotate items is off, then preview it, you will see that the objects do not rotate. So again, if I go to modify, we want to ensure rotate items is on, click OK. And then we can form the objects like that. So I'm going to undo that back again, so just so it's my single portal frame, and look at the transform elements command. The mirror tool, as you would expect, is pretty simple. You select the object, include additional connectors, and then you can select the mirror points. So you can select the mirror points by just picking on the screen, and I can say that I want to mirror it along my D axis, and you have an option to delete the source object. If I click that on, click OK, it will mirror the portal frame and delete the source object. So pretty standard, pretty simple to do. Now we start to look at the rotate tool. What the rotate tool, it will allow you to rotate a set of objects. So if I select my objects, I select my outer joint box, and let's say for instance I enter the value of 90 degrees for the rotation angle, delete source objects, select OK, it will rotate them objects 90 degrees. So if I just undo that again, and next we look at the align tool and tool option. And what we need to do is select our source objects and the joint box, and now we need to look at select the align points. And when we do this, we have to read the command line. So it says please select the origin reference point. The point I'm going to choose for the origin of the objects is the midpoint of my portal frame. It then says please select the destination reference point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a grid intersect at this point. It then says please select the X origin. So I'm going to pick a point here, I'm going to origin it that way, and then a Y direction from E to E. Then when we go to the preview command, it will have aligned the objects around that point. So if I just click that again, you'll see that what it does, it takes it from the center point, and then you choose an X and a Y alignment area, and you can align the tool like that. The final command we want to look at is the adapt tool. So I'm just going to quickly undo this. And I'm going to quickly take a copy of just the 4 elements. 5 meters X direction, 1 number, and I click OK. What the adapt option will do, it will create a copy. So if I take out this joint, when I use the adapt option, it will allow me to select a reference element and a target element. And if I say the object I want to copy is going to be that haunch, and the reference element is the rafter on the left, the target element is the rafter on the right. If I click OK, that will copy that element based upon the 2 references I've chosen. So if just to repeat that, I can take the whole haunch if I wish. So I can just say let's adapt the complete joint box, and then you select a reference element and then a target element, and that will adapt the objects across. So I hope that clears up all the different objects that are available. In this instance, to finish the tutorial, I'm just going to quickly create a copy of the 3 elements. So I'm going to select my column, rafter, rafter, column, and then the joint box. Include additional connectors on, 5 meter space in X direction, 3 copies, and I simply click OK. And that will copy the objects along. So thank you very much, and join me again for another tutorial very soon.